Hello, everyone. This is Faith at Faith and Books. Why do I have trouble lately saying that? Anyway, I'm here again, sitting in the parking lot of a nearby park. It's about the same time as it was in my last video. It's 8:35, and I think I'm going to do for you today the Shakespeare Journey Tag, or the Journey through Shakespeare Tag. So what happened was I only have my phone to look it up on, and I just took really bad cryptic notes, so I can't even remember the complete name of the tag that I'm doing. But anyway, it's the tag going around for Shakespeare. I saw the one that Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading did, and the originators of the tag are the three hosts of Shakespeare. And I also saw Nicole. So Nicole of A Day of Small Things, Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading, and her husband Jason of Old Blues Chapter and Verse are the hosts this year of Shakespeare. And I'm not doing any of the prompts or anything because I had already decided to read Cymbeline. I'm in the middle of Cymbeline right now. But I did want to do this tag. So I kind of, like I said, took cryptic notes on the prompts. I'll see how well I do, how well I remember what I wrote. I could talk about Shakespeare all day long, but I'm going to limit myself to just trying to answer these questions in a pithy way. So the first question is, what was your first reading experience of Shakespeare? Now, to me, Shakespeare wrote plays, so you're supposed to see it, not read it first, right? And he wrote poetry too, but poetry is meant to be read aloud. So I think he's a very oral thing, you know. But my first reading experience was a very bad one. I read Macbeth freshman year in high school. I think the teacher was abysmal at teaching it, and it made me very sad because I thought I was too stupid to understand Shakespeare. I really wanted to be one of those people that love Shakespeare. I had been looking forward to studying him because I had seen that Zeffirelli film of Romeo and Juliet, and I didn't get it. I didn't get the language or anything. It was over my head. And then I know that in middle school, some acting troupe came to our school and put on some play. I can't remember if it was Twelfth Night or All's Well That Ends Well or one of those comedies. Totally didn't get it. I was totally over my head. I was so confused. I didn't understand what all the fuss was about Shakespeare. But I knew that a lot of people really liked him, including my parents. And so I wanted to be one of those people that like Shakespeare. And so it was a very depressing encounter with Shakespeare the first time I studied it. I didn't get Shakespeare until I was 31, I think. I was married with a baby, and my Aunt Jackie took me to see Julius Caesar, and it was in a half-constructed high-rise. So we took this elevator up. We went out on this floor. It was just concrete and girders. They had set up folding chairs. There wasn't even a backstage. There was like some building supplies were in a pile, and they would go behind that. That was their backstage. There were very few props. And it was absolutely stunning, mesmerizing, so moving. And I finally got Shakespeare. I walked out of there just floating on air. And it was the first time I understood what all the fuss was about. So it was much later in life for me. Okay, the second question is, what scene has brought you to tears? Or what play, what scene, and where were you? So a couple years ago, my husband and I decided to read the Henriade. Well, we didn't read the whole thing. I read Richard II and then Henry IV, Part 1 and Part 2. I'm not sure what my husband read. And then we read The Hollow Crown. We watched The Hollow Crown. And I loved Richard II. That was such a moving play. It's just wonderful. I didn't sob or anything, but I was moved to tears by a couple of scenes. One where he's saying goodbye to his wife, where they know they're never going to see each other again. And then the soliloquy that he gives when he's imprisoned right before he gets assassinated. That's so moving. I really, really love that play. I did not expect to like it. And it's one of my favorites. And I don't know where I was probably in my bedroom reading. So yes, and I'm going to read, that's going to be what I'm going to read from that play in a few prompts from now. Okay, so the question 3 is people who have played a role. That's what I wrote down. This is all paraphrased. Some sort of influential role in introducing you to Shakespeare, maybe. And that would definitely be my Aunt Jackie, who took me to see Julius Caesar. And she also gave me this book. And this book is Shakespeare's Religious Background by Peter Millward, who was a Jesuit priest in Japan, teaching at a university in Japan. And he did this whole analysis of of religion in Shakespeare. And it's very academic. And I would open it up and read a few pages. I didn't read very much of this at all. But this ties into the next prompt. So anyway, my Aunt Jackie was definitely the most influential. She would take me to see plays, including Shakespeare. She really was the one that opened the door for me. Question number 4. What is your favorite book? I think they said favorite book or movie about Shakespeare. And I do have a couple of favorite books. So this one was interesting to me, but I never really read it. But then I found out that this guy, Joseph Pierce, who is an editor for Ignatius Press and who writes about he's a convert, and he writes about a lot of Catholic literary figures. And he wrote this book, The Quest for Shakespeare, The Bard of Avon, and the Church of Rome. And this was so, he based a lot of this on this guy's work. But this is very dry and academic, and this is much more accessible. So this is a really, really interesting read. And after I read it, I really felt like I got Shakespeare more. I remember reading a long time ago, I read the book. It's a very popular book, Will in the World. And I remember being so frustrated by this book because it was so thick. And it basically is a compilation of every kind of theory about Shakespeare out there. No matter how contradictory, he just put it all together. And after reading that thick book, I closed it, and I was so frustrated because I thought, I don't know anything more about Shakespeare than I knew when I went in. It was even more confusing because it was so contradictory. This is so cohesive because this is instead of a compilation of all these theories, this is one person's theory, and delving very deep into it, and somebody who really knows and appreciates Shakespeare. So this is got to be my favorite book about Shakespeare, but I have another couple I want to show you. I also really, really like this book. This is Brush Up Your Shakespeare by Michael Macron. And this also was a book given to me by my Aunt Jackie. And I have in past Shaketembers done a series where I just read from this book. But what this book does is it takes phrases from various plays like Cudgel Thy Brains, this is from Hamlet, gives you the little scene, and then explains it. It's a fun book to just pick up and read, and I really enjoy it. It's a really fun and informative book. Another book, though, that I keep wanting to read, to use, and I keep not doing it. So I'm already making vows to myself about Shaketember next year. I think I'm going to try to reread The Quest for Shakespeare, and I'm going to try to really get into this book. This is Shakespeare's Use of the Arts of Language. It's by Sister Miriam Joseph, who was a well-known classics professor, and she actually uses Shakespeare to teach language. And I really I've owned this for years, and I pick it up and I thumb through it, and I never actually do anything with it. So I think next September I'm going to tell myself, we'll see if this really comes to pass. But yeah, so this is an interesting book that I've owned, and I really need to get more into it. So anyway, so that was question 4 about the books. 5, which character most resembles you? there's a paraphrase of the question, but I think that's the gist of it. I'm going to say Hamlet because I can drive myself crazy being, just obsessing on things and thinking about moral issues and being upset with how, evil people are and how depraved people are and treacherous. And I can really work myself up. So I'm going to say Hamlet. Number 6. Oh, I forgot to write down the question. I think it was, what play would you most like to see performed? I have seen many plays performed now. But the one that I haven't seen that I've read but I've never seen, and my younger sister went to England and she got to see this play produced in Stratford-on-Avon at the Shakespeare Theater there, and it's Merchant of Venice. I've never seen that one performed. So that's the one that I would really like to see. Question 7. Again, I didn't write the question. I only wrote down my answer. Okay, I think it was, what actor in history would you like to see perform Hamlet? I guess play Hamlet. And what was the name of the guy, David somebody or another, who was Samuel Johnson's friend, who was the great Shakespearean actor? I can't remember his last name now. It would be cool to see him because he's the first one you really hear about who was had a big reputation for playing Shakespeare well. But I have had the privilege of seeing Patrick Page in 3 different Shakespeare productions. So I first saw him in, I believe, Macbeth. He played Macbeth. So good. He's an American actor who's just does the route, just plays different Shakespeare roles all over the country. But he's wonderful. So I saw him play Macbeth, and then I saw him play Iago with, what was his name? Forrest Whitaker? He's a very underrated, but he was brilliant as Othello. It was absolutely a stunning production. And then I most recently saw Patrick Page. He's gotten older, I guess, like I have. But he was King Lear. We just went and saw King Lear in February. So I've seen him in 3 roles, but I missed him in Hamlet, and I bet he was absolutely brilliant. So I would have loved to have seen Patrick Page in Hamlet. Okay, 8. Again. Oh, okay, this is when I'm supposed to read you or deliver a passage from a play. So this one is, I'm just going to take my note here, Richard II, and read you. I don't know how well I'll do, but this is Act 3, Scene 2. And what happens in Richard II is he has political enemies. One of them is Henry Bolingbroke, or Bolingbroke. I'm not sure how you say it. And he banishes him for a reason. He knows he's a dangerous character. Anyway, he banishes him. And Henry Bolingbroke decides that that's a reason to come back and start a civil war. Basically a coup to take over the kingship. And so Richard II, this scene is when Richard II realizes that the tide is turning against him. They've been fighting, and he's lost several trusted advisors and generals. And he's on this beach, and they're gathering there, and they're trying to figure out what to do. And Richard II, he realizes that the end is coming. So it's just this page here that I'll read. Okay. No matter where, of comfort no man speak. Let's talk of graves, of worms, and epitaphs. Make dust our paper, and with rainy eyes write sorrow on the bosom of the earth. Let's choose executors, and talk of wills. And yet not so, for what can we bequeath, save our deposed bodies to the ground? Our lands, our lives, and all our Bolingbroke's. And nothing can we call our own but death, and that small model of the barren earth, which serves as paste and cover to our bones. For God's sake, let us sit upon the ground and tell sad stories of the death of kings, how some have been deposed, some slain in war, some haunted by the ghosts they have deposed, some poisoned by their wives, some sleeping killed, all murdered. For within the hollow crown that rounds the mortal temples of a king keeps death his court. And there the antic sits, scoffing his state and grinning at his pomp, allowing him a breath, a little scene, to monarchize, be feared, and kill with looks, infusing him with self and vain conceit, as if this flesh, which walls about our life, were brass impregnable, and humored thus, comes at last, and with a little pin bores through his castle wall, and farewell, king, cover your heads and mock not flesh and blood with solemn reverence. Throw away respect, tradition, form, and ceremonious duty. For you have but mistook me all this while. I live with bread like you, feel want, taste grief, need friends. Subjected thus, how can you say to me, I am a king? Very moving scene. All right, and then the next question is, do any plays intimidate you? So I'm kind of weird in that a lot of the comedies intimidate me. Now, I do like some of them. I love The Tempest. Much Ado About Nothing is great. There are two great film versions of that. A Midsummer's Night's Dream I've seen the most. And I saw the very best performance of that at the Blackfriars Theater in Stanton, Virginia. It was absolutely amazing. The guy who played Puck had the audience just eating out of his hands. It was the funniest thing. I never laughed so hard in my life. It was absolutely spectacular. So I've got Midsummer's Night's Dream. I can do Much Ado About Nothing, The Tempest. I've read The Merchant of Venice. What else is there that I've done or I've read or been exposed to? I can't remember. There's one more. Oh, The Taming of the Shrew. I've actually seen that several times. That's my least favorite. I don't like the pacing of that comedy. But there's a bunch that I just don't get. I don't get All's Well That Ends Well, Twelfth Night, The Comedy of Errors, Gentleman of Verona. There's a bunch of them. They have like the same sort of plot lines where there's twins or people who look alike or somebody dresses like a page or whatever, and it's too convoluted and I can't follow it and I don't get it. And I'm not really into like body slapstick humor that much. I'm okay with it. I'm almost more okay with it in the tragedies because then it's that tension relief. But a lot of the comedies, they fall flat for me. I love the histories and the tragedies a lot more than the comedies. Okay, question number 10. Tips for intimidated readers who are coming to Shakespeare for the first time. So I feel like I'm pretty good at this because I was so intimidated for a long time, and also I have taught Shakespeare. So I homeschooled my kids and we learned Shakespeare, although some of them actually took a course in Shakespeare as well. And then I taught Shakespeare at a co-op, so to 7th and 8th graders. So my way of approaching Shakespeare is, like I said, I think he should be seen before you actually read. So I think you should get a summary, like a plot outline, and then go and see a performance, and then read. And I'm fine with using this no fear if you need to get the gist. The problem is you have to get into the language and not let the language intimidate you. I mean, one way to do that would be like with this. Just, go on a little rabbit trail where you just expose yourself to Shakespeare's language. You get used to the quotes and what they mean. Or you read a certain passage, a famous passage from Romeo and Juliet or something like that. And then you actually learn what it really means. And you can do this, on your own time in a relaxed way. And then find out what's going to be performed in your area. Get to know the plot of it. You can read a summary. Or just, on the program, they'll have a little summary. And then just go and watch it and relax and enjoy and get what you can from the performance itself. And then go and read it. You don't need to know it perfectly before you see it because it's a play. And if the actors are any good or halfway good, you'll get a lot of it anyway. And it's just a slow thing that you, for me anyway, slowly learn to appreciate. Yeah. So the thing is to go to a really good performance, because an actor who really is good at acting can convey it through their tone of voice and inflection and gestures and facial expressions and, where they place themselves on the stage. I mean, there's just so many ways that they can convey it. And then the meaning absorbs in without having no particular phrases that he's using that are maybe archaic or strange to us. So yeah, just take it slow, let yourself slowly acclimate to the language, and then just let it wash over you and absorb what you can. And as you do that, you'll get better and better. All right, 11, okay, is what's your favorite play and why? I'm going to have to break it down into the different. So right now, it's a toss-up in the histories between Richard II and Henry V. I taught Henry V to 7th and 8th graders. And that's a really good one because it's got that funny scene in the middle where Catherine is speaking French and Henry V doesn't, kids think that's really funny. And it's got a very noble, patriotic kind of vibe to it. And there's that wonderful movie with Kenneth Branagh. So that's a good first play. And so I really do love that play very, very much. But now I really like Richard II too. So that's the histories. For the tragedies, I don't know. I still kind of like, is Julius Caesar a tragedy or a history? I forget how that's categorized. I still like Julius Caesar. I guess you have to say Hamlet. I guess Hamlet is the one. Yeah. I don't know. I'm torn about the tragedies. And then I think for comedy, my favorite comedy, it's a toss-up between The Tempest and A Midsummer's Night's Dream. And then number 12 is tag somebody. Anybody who's watching this who wants to do this, I will copy and paste the actual questions down below in the notes, and then you can do it too. So I'm just a general tag to anybody who might see this and be inspired to do it. So I'm going to stop now. I'm still reading Cymbeline. Hopefully my next video will be what I think about that. So I'm only like halfway through the second scene. So, I mean, not scene, act. All right. So I will talk to you later. I hope this was, interesting. And yeah, happy reading. Bye-bye.